So now that Nebraska's got 7 wins, how about 9 in the regular season? What do you think?
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today.
All right, welcome. Connor Happer, Mitch Shermer with you back on a Monday. We had plenty of game reaction on the Sunday reaction pod, so you can check that out wherever you get pods, or of course on YouTube, as Mitch mentioned as well. So we begin the bye week with the big question, Mitch, right off the top of the show. Can Nebraska capitalize on this newfound momentum and some confidence behind a freshman quarterback who's going to make his second and third starts in very, very different environments than he will have made his first start in? And is it doable? Is it doable for Nebraska to finish strong and come up with a 9-win regular season?
Think about this if you're TJ Lateef, and assuming that he stays healthy through the bowl game, where the first 4 starts of his career will be. 1, the iconic Rose Bowl, which is in his hometown. 2, at 108,000 seat Beaver Stadium, one of the most intimidating venues in all of college sports. Maybe it won't be that way on November 22nd, but that is what Beaver Stadium is known for. 3rd, at Memorial Stadium, his home stadium, and then 4th at a tropical bowl destination. You could not get more different with tropical Nashville. You could not get more different with your first 4 starts. Like, you're going to run the full gamut of college football experiences in those 4 games. If that's how it works out for TJ Lateef.
It's crazy to think about. And you didn't even mention, I mean, the one start at Memorial Stadium will be on Black Friday against the most bitter rival with a lot on the line. I mean, a ton of the line, likely.
Iowa, yeah, a lot on the line in the sense that both teams are going to be fighting for bowl positioning. After Iowa, I was about to say Iowa fighting for outside chance at the playoff, but that came to a crashing halt on Saturday as Oregon drove the length of the field after Iowa went up 16-15 on Mark Gronowski's 4th down run into the end zone. So the safety ended up mattering quite a bit. Iowa had a safety early in that game.
Mitch Sherman also has an obsession with games potentially ending 2-0 one day. I really enjoy that bit of yours.
That became a bit for me just on Saturday. Well, there were 2. It just so happened that Iowa and Colorado, I didn't have anything to do with that. Iowa and Colorado were both down 2-0, and the scores came across the app. So the first one, I screenshotted it.
I want to see it.
I would love to see a 2-0 game. I wouldn't actually want to watch it, but I would love to see a game in 2-0.
Iowa and Penn
3-2. Yeah, it was a 4-2.
Iowa Penn State. It was a 6-4. It was 6-4.
Yes, that's a famous game.
Famous 6-4 game back in the day. But you're right. So I mean, let's look ahead a little bit, right? So Nebraska's got this win underneath their belt, newfound probably confidence behind TJ Lateef, and most certainly at least a defined path toward it, right? Like Nebraska, like with an identity of sorts on offense. They know what they have to do to win games. Which that's a whole nother conversation that we.
It's a different episode. We'll have that for you later this week.
Yeah, we'll have that on this show.
Did Nebraska find its offensive identity because of TJ Lateef?
Spoiler alert: the answer is yes. And then, Iowa. You mentioned how they lost. Shout out to one of the best names in college football, Atticus Sappington, for knocking in a field goal to beat Iowa in Iowa City in a rainy cold day. I mean, that's a really, really tough place to win no matter what, but especially on that day. And then Indiana, you just can't kill those guys. They're getting a big, big, big push from Penn State, who has now lost 6 games in a row. Let's just think about Penn State, what they've been through for the last month and a half now. Started with that double overtime loss to Oregon. Then they go out to the West Coast and lose to UCLA. Then they lose at home to Northwestern and their coach gets fired. Then they go and nearly beat Iowa the very next week. Then they push Ohio State for a while before falling in the third and fourth quarter. Then they have Indiana pushed all the way to the brink before losing at home. They get Michigan State, Nebraska, and Rutgers to finish off their season, and they're 3-6. They need to win all 3 to go to a bowl game. I mean,
is Nebraska going to be getting Penn State coming off of its first win in 7 games? That's my expectation is that Penn State's going to go to East Lansing this week while Nebraska's off and win and get off the schneid. Michigan State, perhaps more of a mess than Penn State, is also 3-6. So this is a bowl elimination game for Michigan State, Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, so my expectation would be yes as well. But obviously Penn State is a team who's very, very capable. I mean, they're really talented, but either way, in those 2 games, it's gonna be close, and it's gonna go into the fourth quarter. I don't expect Nebraska to get beat badly by either of those 2 teams.
Penn State definitely has the athletes and the ability to do it, but then, yeah, like you said, like you laid out there, the Nittany Lions have lost 6 games in a row. They've got an interim coach. They've got a quarterback who began the year as a backup. Their All-American tailbacks are not playing up to the capabilities, the first-round capabilities that we expected. But there's still a lot of talent there. So there comes a point with Penn State where you have to ask how much can they endure? And I'm sure that there are a lot of conversations in State College, and we've been through this multiple times in covering it and listening to players and coaches at Nebraska say the same things in answering the questions that Penn State players are being asked, like, how much more do you have in the tank? Like, where does the motivation come from to continue to go out and play your hardest every single Saturday? And the players will say, no, we're doing this for pride. We're doing this because we've got something to prove. We're doing it for, our brothers to our right and our left, and for these coaches who are given everything. And I truly believe that that's the case. Even if Penn State loses at East Lansing at Michigan State this week, Nebraska's gonna get a good punch from them. That's I believe senior day at Penn State, because they finish at Rutgers on Thanksgiving weekend. Yeah.
My camera just went out. We'll get that back in a second. Just as a note here, like Nebraska gets Penn State at all these interesting times. I mean, the last time they played them was in 2020. They were 0-3 at the time. They were like a top, I think, 15-ish, 10-ish team to start the season. They started the season
Levis
0-3. Yeah, and Nebraska won. They beat Penn State. There was
Luke
17
McCaffrey.
when Nebraska was sort of in disarray. And then, 3 matchups in a row, 13, 12, and 11, where, we know sort of what was going on during that time as well. Odd. And so Nebraska's 4-1 against Penn State since they joined the league. And now they get them in this very, very odd year that they're having now as well. It's what an interesting team to get at this time.
Yeah, the 2011 game was the strangest circumstance of all time, in that you didn't even really know in the days leading up to that game if there was going to be a game, because this is when the Sandusky scandal broke, and it was nobody at Penn State on the administrative side or the player side or anywhere possibly thinking about football in that moment. So you're right. You're exactly right. Like every time Nebraska plays Penn State, it's in either tragic or just bizarre circumstances. And you're going to have that again, no matter what happens Saturday. Either Penn State's going to be on senior day without Drew Aller, without James Franklin, vying for bowl eligibility, trying to summon one final piece of strength, or they're going to be out of it. And it's like lame duck Saturday. I mean, Pat Kraft might as well hold a job auditions at halftime of that game and just have head coaches come in and like speak to the crowd and see who gets the best response, and then hire that guy in the third quarter.
Which do you view to be more likely that Nebraska wins out of the final two games?
Oh, well, I think at home, Iowa's a better team. Iowa's a more dangerous team.
And Nebraska has well-documented struggles with Iowa. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, Nebraska's history against Penn State, like winning 4 of the 5 most recent games, I don't think.
No, it doesn't really.
It's kind of fluky.
Yeah.
It's not, Penn State's been much better than Nebraska for the past 15 years, and somehow Nebraska's won 4 of the 5 meetings.
But the Iowa thing is real.
The Iowa thing's very real.
Yeah.
And, hey, if Iowa goes to USC, and I kind of expect that Iowa's going to lose at USC this week, and so that will take the Hawks to 6-4, and then Iowa would be likely 7-4. Who does Iowa have the week that Nebraska's at
Michigan
Penn State? Yeah, okay. I think I would be 7-4. So, I mean, it's not like they're just playing for bowl positioning. But Iowa will do something in some way. Like, okay, the blueprint is there for Nebraska, and what Iowa did last year with it can't do that. They can't guard the center of the field and play mind games with Nebraska and actually succeed. They will do something before the game, early in the game, somewhere in the game. It will be drawn up. They've probably already decided. It was probably decided in June what Iowa would do to mess with Nebraska's head in this game on Black Friday, and it will happen. And Nebraska should be ready for it this time and know that this is what Iowa does. And yeah, it's going to be a cluster. Like no matter what happens, that's what it's going to be.
That's the story. That's always the story.
That's the tougher. That's probably the more. I don't know. I'll change my.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. You don't have to make up your mind now. Just like you're sort of like, I'll say this. I think Nebraska finds a way to get one of them. And if it's the first one, if it's Penn State in a couple weeks here, then they'll have every shot in the world to beat Iowa. I mean, they'll have every shot in the world to beat Iowa anyway. But I mean, yeah. So to answer the question that we had at the top, like, I think it's a very real possibility. I don't think it doesn't seem any less likely than it did before Dylan Raiola went out, to be honest with you. I think Nebraska should be right there in both of those games, and we'll see if they got enough to get over the top.
Nebraska probably well, we'll wait and talk about this the next segment. Here's a question, and we'll get to this in the second part of the next segment. Here's a question. Is Nebraska with TJ Lateef on offense better equipped to withstand the Penn State and Iowa defensive assault that is coming? I think that's realistic to ask, even with the 22-game starter sideline for the remainder of the season. We'll get to that and a few other things that I want to discuss, that we both want to discuss after this. But right now, a word from Wayfair. The holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting, but getting your home ready for the guests that are coming to visit and all of the celebrations can feel like a lot. Maybe you need some more serveware for your food, for your meals. Maybe you need a whole home refresh. Maybe your guest room could use some new bedding. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready, from Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, and outdoor inflatables. It's your one-stop shop for every room inside of the house and your space outside of the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget. And with free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get all that you need without the hassle of delivery fees. Huge delivery fees. I love how easy it is to find pieces that fit our style and our budget. When we've used Wayfair, everything was in one place. Checkout was a breeze. So get organized, get refreshed, get back to the routine for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen of the day, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer, back with you on this Monday. A couple things that I want to mention right here as a result of our kind of some aftermath, some fallout from our Friday mailbag. Sometimes the questions, they move real fast there, and we can go out on a limb and talk about stuff that speak out of our rear ends. So we were talking about the walk-on QBs who started at Nebraska in reference to a question. I don't know. TJ's not a walk-on. I don't know. We were talking about backup QBs, and the subject of walk-ons came up. Who was the? I think
it was freshman quarterbacks.
Freshman quarterbacks. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm digging myself a deeper hole. Anyway, I mentioned Monte Cristo, and I was trying to remember when Monte Cristo started. He got to start as a senior in 1998, not in 1994. There was a quarterback crisis in 94 when Tommy Frazier had the blood clots and Brick Behringer had the collapsed lung, and Matt Turman got injured. The start for Monte Cristo, who was a walk-on, came in 1998 with Frank Solich in charge, when injuries struck Eric Crouch and Bobby Newcomb. So we can now set the record straight on that. Also, one of the questions asked me to list the wines that were in the rack here over my left shoulder, and I did. And then I heard from some folks who took issue with the choices in my rack. So those wines back there are like tabletop books. They're for display, as far as I know, because I certainly did not pick them. I'm not a wine drinker. But there are a lot of wine drinkers, I found out, who enjoy this podcast. We appreciate that. Some said that I should have representation in the rack from Nebraska's finest wineries. And we will say that we'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to drink that wine if there's a local producer out there who wants to become a sponsor of the show. So just let us know.
Hey, somebody sent me a Nebraska mug because they didn't like how my mug was white. And so that's what I use when I need a double coffee. I think I had it on the reaction pod on Sunday. I two coffeeed that thing, and that was right in there. So thank you. Yes, and of course we'd love to have the representation. We appreciate everybody listening, as always.
Got my black mug over there. It's the symbolic of the blackout.
I'm on the water now.
Okay.
Stuff.
All right. So I want to talk about the offensive line. No sacks, no hurries. No, there might have been hurries. No QB hits on Saturday night at UCLA. Elijah Pritchett and Turner Corcoran holding down the spots at tackle for the rest of the way. Pritchett fought through the injury that he suffered against USC, made it back, played the whole game at left tackle. Then you got Rocco Spindler, Henry Lutovsky, Justin Evans doing their thing. Played pretty well, I thought, on Saturday night. When Nebraska needed to move the line of scrimmage, it did. And that's part of the reason that Emmett Johnson was able to cut through holes and jump around and get started on his 129 yard rushing effort. So I'll ask this, and it kind of plays into the question that we teased earlier. How much better is the line? How much better equipped is this line to succeed right now with the injuries that it faces and some of the depth issues with a mobile quarterback?
I think it just simplifies everything. And so I understand. I mean, this is like a big picture conversation, I think, for what you want out of your quarterback. There's been people throughout the season who've just been adamant. Hey, let's give Latif a shot because he gives you that extra dynamic. And yeah, I do think Nebraska, specifically their offensive line, the way that they're set up and the blockers that they have are more suited to be. I mean, your tackle like Pritchett and Corcoran, especially, like those guys are not super duper athletic, long, like shifting their feet. They're kind of. There goes my camera again. What is going on? They're kind of road grader type of guys. And they're certainly capable. And you asked offensive linemen, they probably would rather run block. So I think there's that piece of it. I also think it simplifies things for the offensive coordinator. You mentioned how he rarely seemed to be under any sort of pressure or anything like that. I think that's because of some of how they were able to simplify the offense. He only put the ball in the air, 15 times on Saturday night. And so when I view Dylan Raiola as a person who they view and they say, well, we can do everything with him, except for obviously design runs, which they want to keep limited. And so when you have so many things on the menu and so many things on the plate, I just think you have a difficult time picking a direction and a path. And it kind of comes down on a game to game based thing. Like, what do we need to accentuate here with a quarterback like Latif, who's limited in a lot of ways and he's making his first start? I don't know what his career is going to look like, but at this stage in his career right now, he is best suited to have a small menu with some runs in there as well to accentuate his stuff. So the short answer is yeah, absolutely. And I do think there's an element that makes it a lot easier for the offensive coordinator as well, and then definitely for the offensive line. This
offensive line right now, with the 5 players who are getting the reps in this situation with the lack of depth, like, I'm not making a statement about what's best long-term for Nebraska's offense, like what's best for the program. These are things that the Nebraska coaches and the personnel staff, the program at large, will tackle in the offseason. And generally, they kind of tend to take care of themselves. Like, you don't usually go through an offseason, into a spring, into another season, and say, oh my gosh, we have 2 great quarterbacks. Like, one way or another, these things tend to work themselves out. Like, foreshadowing, I don't know, but that's usually the way it is. So that's not where I'm going with this at all. And I've seen a lot of people here in the last 36 hours who want to start to have that conversation. And that's just not where we're at right now. Like, wait till bowl season at a minimum and probably into January and February. I'm just talking about, like, right now in this moment, as Nebraska goes through the bye week and gets ready for Penn State and Iowa, its offensive line is in a better spot because it has a quarterback who is run first and can get out and move the pocket.
I thought this year, and I think I've said this before on this show, I thought that they would make it easier on Dylan this year, and some of what Dylan is able to do is whether it be some of those air raid concepts, moving him outside of the pocket a little bit, getting him throwing on the run, which we saw a lot more of, toward the middle of the year. That was an adjustment from them. I think so. It's not just a one size, like, you don't have to have a running quarterback, but clearly there's something there with Latif and where he's at in his development right now, where they're just able to simplify it enough for him. I think they needed to simplify it more for Dylan this year. And so maybe if there's a lesson in this for not so much like which one do you play or quarterback controversy or anything like that, it's that they need to create a situation that is easier and more palatable for Dylan Raiola going forward as well, because they've created that for TJ Lateef. And so they're certainly capable of it. And that I think is a discussion worth having in the offseason.
And I think you can see the direction that the Nebraska football is headed by the way that it has recruited quarterbacks. Now, Dylan was a no-brainer in that he was a 5-star and a legacy kid and was going to come in as the face of your program and has this NFL ceiling. It's great. He can take you to great heights. But as they move forward in what comes after Dylan Raiola, you've seen Nebraska go after quarterbacks more out of the TJ Lateef mold. And it's funny to say that Dayton Raiola, Dylan's brother, is more out of the TJ Lateef mold than he is out of the Dylan Raiola mold. I don't know if that's really true. Like, he grew up training with Dylan Raiola. There's going to be a lot of similarities, although Dayton's left-handed, between Dayton and Dylan. He's definitely more mobile. He's definitely more comfortable getting out of the pocket on design runs, doing a rollout, that kind of stuff. And then Trey Taylor, the 2027 signee, I haven't sat down and studied his film, but what I have seen is that he plays the game similar to Lateef.
Yeah, I think so too. I've seen that as well, and that's sort of what I have always thought of Dayton. So they gotta find the answer somewhere, but that's a question for the offseason. Like you said, Mitch, right now, they clearly have a plan in place for him that is advantageous to everybody, and they just need to figure out what that is for Dylan coming up in the winter months.
Okay, let's come back and talk about the Big Red Invasion on Saturday night. Put a bow on Nebraska at UCLA in the Rose Bowl. And then we'll move on and look at what's going on in some other Nebraska sports after a big weekend. That's next.
But first, word from our friends at the FanDuel Sportsbook, where the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So even if you miss the start of the game, FanDuel's got live bets, everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Maybe you like a team who just has that look in them, just the shots haven't been going in. You can take advantage of those thoughts on FanDuel. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. So FanDuel's here to make the games a little bit more exciting for you. And there's a great deal on the table right now. FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I think UCLA, Mitch, they were having trouble sort of communicating at the line a little as the game got later and later. And that's another time this year where in a road game,
3 road games. It's 3 road games. We're counting Cincinnati. It's 3 road games.
In a road game or a neutral site game, it has been difficult for the home team, quote unquote, to be able to communicate at the line of scrimmage. And that would be due to Nebraska fans who are either in place on the West Coast or migrated out to the West Coast to see the Rose Bowl for potentially one final time on Saturday night. UCLA was moving their home games to SoFi. I mean, so it was painted in red on Saturday night.
Can we dispel the notion that all 25,000 of the Nebraska fans who attend games in Los Angeles came by carry, but they took horses out over the mountains to get to California, or they all drove
there already. Yeah.
Many of them live there. I would like to tell all of the broadcast networks that there is there are 38 million people in California, and a couple 100,000 of them, or 100,000 of them, or 60,000 of them, I don't know the number, have roots connected to Nebraska or family connected to Nebraska, or they grew up as fans of Nebraska because they liked Tom Osborne and his style of play, and they've worn red and flown flags for decades. And whenever Nebraska goes out there, whether it's to Fresno or to the Foster Farms Bowl or the Holiday Bowl or USC or UCLA, they all drive an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours and go to the game. All of these people are not from North Platte and Ainsworth and Ogallala. That's what they think on Fox and whoever else is broadcasting these games.
Well, let me look. Let's see. Nebraska towns by population. So what are we thinking? There was about 25,000 Nebraska fans.
I think that's
there.
Right. Yeah, 20 to 25.
It's I think it was just the entire city of Norfolk. They all came.
You're probably right. Johnny Carson. He had his day, many days in Los Angeles, so they go out and they pay homage. Last year at the Coliseum, this year at the Rose Bowl. That's what
all of Hastings hopped on a plane, and they all went out there. But yeah, Nebraska's a pretty national brand, whether it be graduates from the school who have moved around the country or people who once lived here and they're connected to it. Yeah, of course.
That's one thing about Nebraska fans.
It's an easy ticket to get to, right? It's not like they were hurting to get seats in that game,
And that is something that's somewhat unique to Nebraska fans. If you lived in Nebraska at any time, if you grew up here and you've moved away and you've lived somewhere else on the East Coast or the West Coast or Texas or whatever or Southeast Asia, as we've seen in our mailbags for 20, 30, 40 years, you still are a Nebraska fan. It's just it's built into the DNA of the people who have crossed through this state in a way that I feel is different than Texas fans or Ohio State fans or Alabama fans, perhaps, because it's not while the passion runs deep in those states. When you live there, it isn't just all encompassing in the way it is at Nebraska. And I mean that in with no disrespect to fans in Ohio, but you have the Cleveland Browns and you have the Guardians, and you have all kinds of other colleges. But if you touched Nebraska at any point in your life, like somehow it became your destiny to be a Nebraska fan. And then if they come within 500 miles of where you now live, you go to the games. That's just how it is.
Here is Matt Rhule on Saturday night commenting on the fan base that showed up in LA on Saturday.
Impressive. It's so amazing. I think I told you guys, this is like, Julie, this is the most tickets we had to get this week. I mean, I think a lot of our friends out here and people coming out here and plan to be here, but it's just so great knowing that when you go on the road that you're going to have just such a great crowd like that, and just even the Go Big Red chants at the end and all that. And pretty cool to be coaching in the Rose Bowl and be playing in the Rose Bowl and have that fan base and all those things. So, one of the commentators joked with me before the game. He's like, I bet you all the bowl reps are taking notice, and so, but it's just the power of what Husker Nation is, and we also know what they want, and we're working towards it.
He also said Nebraska was under construction like the Lincoln Roads, which was a good one.
That was a good line. I think he thought of that maybe sometime in the third quarter. So speaking of Nebraska fans that take over Los Angeles, the Nebraska volleyball team, number 1 ranked team in the country, will play this week twice in Los Angeles. Friday and Sunday. So Friday night late at UCLA, and then Sunday at USC. And again, they are going to bring upwards of 5,000 to 10,000 fans. They didn't all come from Norfolk. Again, same situation. Nebraska volleyball has been setting attendance records at opposing venues all through the fall, as they have run to a 24-0 record and have won 46 consecutive sets, which is closing in on a school record. I believe the school record, I read this in Nate Poland's notes the other day, is 58 sets from 1995. So that could be going down, or maybe Nebraska will lose a set at UCLA or USC on the weekend. But expect big numbers of Nebraska fans, much in the vein of what Matt Rhule was talking about, to be there at those 2 LA venues. The Huskers swept Illinois and Minnesota this past weekend. Also, Nebraska basketball is off to men's basketball and women's basketball. They're both off to 2-0 starts. The Nebraska men got a triple-double on Saturday from Rink Mast against Florida International. Was that on your radar? Did you notice the triple-double?
I noticed the triple-double. Yes. It's one of very few. Triple-doubles are rare in college basketball, so Nebraska hasn't had one in 5 years, and Rink Mast is clearly going to be the centerpiece of what they do this year. Yeah, Nebraska basketball is off to a good start. The women beat Samford right before the football game on Saturday night. So this was all 4 of those: men's basketball, women's basketball, football, volleyball, all played on the same day, the Husker Sports Equinox. That doesn't happen very often either, and they all won.
The men's basketball team will play Maryland Eastern Shore on Tuesday. And then Saturday, intriguing game, Huskers go up to the Samford Pentagon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to play Oklahoma. So that's on Big Ten Network. Have your eyes on that one Saturday, as the football team enjoys a bye week. Strange week in the Big Ten. The big noon game is a disgusting. That's the Penn State Michigan State game, I think, and then or maybe that's the CBS game. The two premier games in the Big Ten for TV purposes this week do not excite the national college football public.
Yeah. So Big Noon will be Michigan at Northwestern at Wrigley.
All right. Okay. And then Penn State, Michigan. Michigan State is CBS. Yeah.
Iowa and USC somehow got relegated to the BTN because they had to meet their quotas. BTN gets 2 games for everybody.
And that's the best game. That's the best game of the weekend, unless you want to say that Minnesota at Oregon is the best game of the weekend on Friday night. But anyway, you can take advantage of the kind of down weekend in the Big Ten and watch Nebraska basketball against Oklahoma. The women Amy Williams team will host Creighton at Pinnacle Bank Arena on Wednesday night. That game is on FS1. So we're in this time of year when all of the major teams at Nebraska are competing at the same time.
8:00 tip on Wednesday night on FS1, which will make a late night for your boy, but it should be a fun night as always when those two get together.
All right, we'll maybe we'll talk more about basketball later this week. We'll continue to walk you through the bye week. We'll get caught up at some point early this week with Matt Rhule and see what's on the minds of Nebraska football coaches and players as they get ready to go to Penn State next week. All right, thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Big Ten. Craig is there. Most exciting conference in college sports despite that TV lineup this weekend with the rivalries, championships, everything in between. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.